Right then, please settle down. The Margaret Thatcher debate is like a case of ringworm, is it not? Just when you think it has gone away, it flares back up, itchier and more annoying than ever. Besides, it is back because the consequences of those 1980s choices are biting harder than a soy dog with a grudge. Even Andy Burnham, the so-called King of the North, is rattling on about it in his speeches. Now look, when you actually peer at the destruction of British manufacturing in the early 80s, the truth is not on the front page of the Guardian or the Telegraph. It is squished in the middle, covered in tea stains. It was not an accident cooked up on the back of a fag packet. However, it was not a cartoon conspiracy where a bunch of villains in pinstripes twirled their moustaches and said, "Let's make the country poor for a laugh." It was something far more chilling, a cold, deliberate, ideological choice. They treated British manufacturing like an acceptable casualty of war. The setup. The patient was already in intensive care. To understand 1979, you have to understand the absolute state of machinery Maggie inherited. British manufacturing had not been fit for purpose since Elvis was in the charts. We had 3 systematic defects that would make a German engineer weep into his beer. First, chronic underinvestment. For decades, Labour and Tory governments let the City of London shove money into short-term gambling rather than the upgrading factory floors. New lathe? Nah, let's speculate on property. Second, archaic management. British bosses were out of touch, bureaucratic and slower to adapt than a sloth on tranquilizers. Third, the union stranglehold. This is the big one. The union leaders were not just fighting for wages. They had restrictive practices that made it impossible to introduce new working methods. You had 7 men watching one man dig a hole because of some agreement signed in 1923. By the time the winter of disconnect hit in 78-79, the system was gridlocked, propped up by taxpayer cash and producing goods nobody wanted to buy. Doing nothing was not an option. It really was not. The policy, a deliberate choice, not an accident. This is where the accident theory falls apart faster than a British Leyland gearbox. Thatcher did not try to gently reform manufacturing. She applied an economic sledgehammer. Her Chancellor, Geoffrey Howe, jacked up interest rates to squeeze inflation and, here is a killer, let the pound skyrocket because of North Sea oil money. An artificially strong pound meant British steel, cars and pumps became massively expensive overnight for foreigners. At the exact same time, high interest rates meant local firms could not borrow a fiver to buy a round of drinks. The Cabinet Papers later proved they knew exactly what would happen. They calculated that by cutting subsidies and letting the strong pound crush the weak, the market would learn a lean, hyper-efficient core. They did not explicitly plan to kill manufacturing. However, they were perfectly happy to watch it die. It was an unacceptable price to pay to crush inflation and break the unions. Within her first term, nearly 1 in 4 manufacturing jobs in Britain simply vanished. Gone. Poof. The structural disaster, removing the foundation. Here is the arrogance that still makes my blood pressure spike. The Thatcherites truly believed you could run a great nation purely on brains and spreadsheets, while letting the practical hands rot. They thought the future was all financial services and call centres. But then again, you cannot take a 45-year-old bloke who has spent his life mastering heavy electrical engineering, a bloke who can hear a bearing foul from 50 yards, shut his plant and expect him to move to London to become a currency trader. It is madness. It hollowed out the skilled, technical middle layer of the British working class. Besides, we have never got it back. However, wait. Enter Harold Wilson, the real architect of the collapse. Now, before you Labour lot start clapping, I have to stop you. Because Harold Wilson absolutely deserves a massive share of the blame. If Thatcher swung the sledgehammer, Wilson spent years letting the gears fill with sand while pretending he was building a rocket ship. In 1963, he promised a new Britain forged in the white heat of the technological revolution. Sounded magnificent. However, what did he actually do? He set up a bloated nightmare called the Ministry of Technology, Mintech, and filled it with academic theorists and union bosses who had never turned a spanner in their lives. Massive national plans, they were not worth the ink. And the steel industry? He renationalised it in 1967 and ran British Steel as a job creation scheme, not a business. He forced plants to stay open at massive losses just to protect voting constituencies. He taught everyone a toxic lesson. It does not matter if you are useless, the taxpayer will bow you out. Then came 1969. His own employment secretary, Barbara Castle, introduced a sensible reform. Secret ballots before strikes. Basic discipline. The union bosses threw a tantrum. Besides, Wilson, terrified of losing their cash, completely bottled it. He surrendered unconditionally. By backing down, he guaranteed 10 more years of industrial chaos. The 3-day week, the piles of uncollected rubbish, the whole bloody mess. Therefore, by the time Thatcher arrived in 1979, the machine was so structurally rotten because of Wilson's cowardice that a catastrophic breakdown was the only logical outcome. The name-calling irony, and here's a bit that makes me actually laugh out loud here in Isaan. I still remember being called Tory scum for pointing this out. The irony is blinding. It was the traditional patriotic working class trade professionals who were most betrayed by Wilson, not by Thatcher. It is exactly the same mechanism we see today with all the left-wing presenters, TV panellists and influencers in London. It does not matter if you have 40 years of engineering experience. It does not matter if your brain works on straight lines, cause and effect, and practical logic. If the reality of your experience offends those theoretical little world view, they put their fingers in their ears and scream insults. The name callers never got to me. Their opinions were not worth the bandwidth they took up. Besides, in 1977, I had already left for the Middle East. Watching from afar gives you a better view. No smoke, no mirrors, just the results. And then Tony Blair arrived. He probably has more to answer for than Wilson and Thatcher combined. However, that is a video for another day when I have more beer and less patience. A few truth bombs before I go. Thatcher the milk snatcher? She only finished the policy started by Labour. Thatcher closed more mines than anyone did? Nope. The Labour government closed more mines than she did. The history is there for all to see. Do not believe me. Do not believe the influencers. Do not believe the slick blokes on the telly. Do your own research. Besides, because the British public, in my grumpy old opinion, have been lied to for decades. Wake up, Britain. Love to hear your comments if you manage to get this far, even if you think I'm a senile old fool, especially if you think I am a senile old fool. Thanks for listening and goodbye from the heat of the Isaan region of Thailand. Right. Now, where's my remote? And that chicken out there has more economic sense than half the cabinet for the last 40 years. At least she produces eggs. Right, I am off for a nap. Bye-bye.